Hey guys, in this video we're going to be checking out the new RunCam Split. Yeah, this is a game changer in my opinion. This product here is going to basically allow you to record 1080p 60 frames per second onboard video and at the same time also use this as an FPV camera. So I've heard that this has the latency and video quality of an Eagle and has the new features of the RunCam 3. So it has like the new wide dynamic range and the 1080p 60 frames per second HD recording. So if this product actually meets my expectations, there's no reason that you'll need to carry a GoPro Session on your miniquad anymore. Now that being said, I'm going to have to put this to the test and see what kind of video this actually produces and what the latency is like for FPV. But before we go over all that, let's go over what we get in the box. Get your manual, get some screws and nuts for mounting, some nylon standoffs, get some cables here for your video, and there's also a USB cable as well. You get an extra long ribbon cable if you want to put this in say a different type of craft. You get the standard ribbon cable here. This is actually more for mini quad mounting. You get this on top of your flight controller, so it's a 30x30 board. Get a Wi-Fi module that connects here on the side, and this allows you to connect your RunCam app on your smartphone to make your setting changes. It is basically like connecting it to your RunCam 2 or RunCam 3. And you get a couple of mounts here. These look like the same mounts that came with the Mini Swift. And here's a look at the setup here. You do have to be careful. This is not something you want to be moving around too much because this ribbon cable can pop out and you can damage it. Obviously, this is meant to put fixed inside your mini quad, and once it's fixed there, obviously the only thing that's going to be an issue is vibration and crashes, of course. So that's another thing we have to sort of look into. The form factor here of the camera module, it looks like the Mini Swift, and let me actually grab one of those and we can compare the form factor. It's pretty close, so I'm not sure if it's an exact match. Okay, so here I got a Mini Swift on the right, and obviously the camera module here is shorter because none of the processing is occurring in here. It's all being occurred on the board itself, both the HD and the analog FPV. It looks like it's got the same 3 mounting screws on the side, fairly similar in size, width, and height. And here it is side to side, and I'm pretty sure that they're pretty much the same size, so I think that's the same mounting hardware. So here's a closer look at the board. Get a USB port here. This is where the ribbon wire connects. Get a couple of buttons here. On the other side here is a couple solder pads for a 1S battery, so only 4.2 volts max. And there's another connector here for your 5 volts power, so you can power the board by 5 volts here or through the USB port. And you got a micro SD card slot here. This is a locking slot, so that not one of those spring mechanisms, so the card can't pop out once it's locked in. So if you guys are worried about that in terms of crashes, that's probably a good thing. And then you got a little microphone here, and then you got some solder pads here. It says here RX and TX, maybe for connecting to a UART, I don't know. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. This is the Wi-Fi module that connects to the side through these little pins. It looks like it would go in like that. And here's what it looks like with it attached. Obviously, you probably wouldn't want to fly around like this. I think it's just for making your setting changes and then disconnecting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and power this on and we'll take a look at the image quality. Okay, so I'm about to connect this up to my video transmitter. First off, this will only take 5 volts, so it doesn't have a wide voltage range, so be aware of that. Another thing I should note is that getting the SD card in is kind of tricky. It's just kind of like the style they use on cell phones, so not really intended for taking the card in and out all the time, so be aware of that. Probably be easier just to leave your card in here permanently and then plug in the USB cord into your computer and then copy the files off and on and off in that method. I'm pretty sure that'll still work. Another thing to note is that this 3-pin connector here, it's 5 volts on the top and then ground and video, and it's the same pinout as on the connector that goes to all of their other cameras. So you can just unplug this from your like your Swift or your Swift 2 or your Swift Mini. And let's see, I'll show you. This is what it looks like. And actually, I just unplugged this from the Swift Mini here. It's got the same pinouts. So it's a 1.25 millimeter pitch connector, 3-pin, and it's got the same pinouts. So it got the power, ground, and then video. So basically, you just unplug this from your current camera, and then you plug it in to the board, and then you just plug it into the board right here. It's that simple. So it's pretty much plug and play as long as you have 5 volts. So if you're running full voltage from your LiPo, you will fry this, so be aware of that. You'll need to then put in a PDB or some sort of voltage regulator in between to make sure you get this to 5 volts. So be careful about that. And for my testing, I'm just going to be using a VTX03, and this definitely outputs 5 volts, so no problem for me. Okay, so I got it powered on. And first thing I noticed, as soon as it powered on, it gave 3 tones to 3 beeps and started recording right away. And you can see here that the little red light is showing on the screen and it is recording. And you got a little LED, blue LED flashing here, and it starts recording right away. I didn't press any buttons, so that's something to be aware of. I think if you have a card in here and you plug in your quad, it'll start recording right away. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but something you should be aware of. The image on here, my first impressions are that it looks like, definitely looks like the Eagle. For me, the colors seem a little bit washed out. It's a little hard to describe and see in the, obviously in the video, because I'm just showing you what's on the FPV screen. I mean, obviously through my view, it looks pretty good, but just looks a little washed out in the colors. I'll have to obviously see what the recording looks like. And I can compare what my recording from this camera and also from this camera, because it's recording my audio as well. So I guess we'll get a little audio clip as well. I'm not really sure what that's going to be looking at. I just plugged this in literally. See the field of view here. I'll just get an idea. Pointing this off to my right where the window is, and you can see you get the side of the window here, and then there's another window over here. So this is pretty similar to the HS1177 with the GoPro lens for the FPV view, and then the up and down is actually a little bit wider because I can't get the clock from the bottom of the window on my HS1177 with the GoPro. So it's a 2.5 millimeter lens, so the FPV view is pretty wide, but we'll have to compare this recording or what you see in the FPV monitor compared to what the HD recording looks like, because I think the field of view on the HD recording is even wider, because this is a 16:9, so we'll have to see that in a little bit later. I'll obviously have more sample video as well. Okay, so what everyone wants to know is what the latency is like. So obviously when it's recording, we want to have an idea if latency is going to affect flight. So I'm going to just stick my finger in front of the lens here, and as you see, I'm moving it, and you can see how my movements correspond to the transmitted video here, and it's pretty low latency. Honestly, I don't see any latency at all, just from just a touch. I think it's fairly similar to the Eagle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my Eagle. I've mounted it in my QAV210, and we'll see what that's like on the monitor. So let me go ahead and set that up. Okay, so this is the QAV210 that I've been flying the Eagle in. This is the 4.3 Eagle, and actually this is a great quad to put that split in, because the board will fit right on top of here. I got plenty of space to put that right on top of this flight controller. So I'm going to be swapping that out, but I want to do a latency test on this to show you what this looks like compared to the split. Okay, so I'm going to do the same test with my finger. This is the Eagle 4.3, and as you can see, pretty similar. I've never had any issues flying with the Eagle in terms of latency, but you can see that the movements correspond almost exactly. So I think as RunCam said, and they mentioned that the latency on the split is just like the Eagle. I think that they're probably correct there. It's probably the same image processor, because I know you obviously you can't tell from the image here, but this looks really similar to the Split. The Split and the Eagle is the image quality is almost exactly the same. I can't tell the difference, at least initially. So I'll have to look at the FPV recordings to really know. But yeah, this looks really, really similar. And this is the and this for field of view. This is the 4.3 Eagle. I'm going to kind of point in the same direction here, off to the right. And the 4.3 Eagle has, at least in the FPV feed, it looks like it has a little bit wider field of view. You can see that I can see further to the left of this window where I couldn't do that on the Split. And the up and down vertical is a little bit wider, not too much wider. You can get a little bit higher off the clock there compared to the Split, but still pretty good. Okay, so I'm just curious what the weight savings is going to be like. So this is the quad that I'm going to be swapping the RunCam Split into. It's got the Eagle in there right now, and I've got a GoPro Session 5 on here. And I'm going to get a weight for this. Comes in at 395 grams. So I'm going to obviously take the GoPro off and swap in the RunCam Split, and then we'll see what that weight's like. That's probably going to be a pretty significant weight reduction. Okay, I'm just going to do a little test of the Wi-Fi module and connect it to my phone and check out the settings. Let's see if it'll connect now. So unfortunately I was not able to get the app to work. I did try updating it in the Google Play Store, but I kept getting this error message saying that I need to update the app to connect to the Split. So it's probably just because I have a very early version and they haven't finished working on the app yet and updating it out into the Google Play Store. Pretty sure by the time this is out for a retail release that app will be working. So I'll probably do an update video later anyway. I want to get that working so I can demonstrate how this works. Okay, so I got the RunCam Split installed, very easy to do. Swapped in the mount, put in the camera. This is just the sensor, and then the camera board on the back here on top of the flight controller with the supplied standoffs and nuts. Basically just disconnected the connector from the Eagle, and I plugged it into the board here for the Split. No problems. And that's because the video transmitter that I'm connecting it to, this ET526, it outputs 5 volts and it works perfectly. And yeah, space is still not even an issue here. I think these are 35mm standoffs. You could probably shrink this stack down a little bit even more, maybe a 30mm standoff max height. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to try this in another quad maybe later. But yeah, space is not an issue for this one, so I'm ready to go fly this. And I'm going to get a weight measurement now. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot less. Yes, it was 395 grams before with the GoPro Session. And now we're at 318 grams. So yeah, about 80 grams less. So that's about what I thought. Should fly pretty nice now. Okay, it's just some video from outside my house. I'm about to put this into my quad, but I can't do that. I can't fly this until later today after I work, so gotta do this now. I haven't touched the settings yet. I'm assuming the wide dynamic range is turned on already. It is recording in 1080p 60 frames per second. I'm pointing it right at the sun over there. And this image quality looks a lot like the Eagle, if not exact. Going into the shadows. And bright light. Looking at the detail of the ground. I think the wide dynamic range works really well. So right away I can see an issue here with this setup using the FPV camera as your HD recording camera, and it has to do with the fact that the frame is actually in the picture over in the upper left and upper right hand corners, and that's because of the way the camera is mounted. It's a little bit, I guess in the QAV210 it's a little bit further back than it probably could be, and if you just move it a little bit forward, then you can get the frame out of the view. And of course, also in this case, the props are also in view as well, because the HD recording is a wider field of view than the FPV video. So when I was setting this up on looking at through my FPV monitor, I didn't see the props. And in the DVR footage from the FPV recording, you don't see the props or the frame. It's only because the wider field of view of the HD recording. So if you don't want to get these in your view, you're going to have to come up with some different mounting options to get these things out of the field of view of those two objects. And the other thing that I also noticed is that because the camera is directly mounted to the frame, instead of using some sort of like a TPU mount or some sort of soft mount, you get more jello. So I didn't consider this when I put it in here. I just kind of overlooked it. So I'm going to have to come up with a different mounting solution for this camera to get rid of the jello. It's not a big deal, but I think I'm going to have to come up with a different mounting solution to get rid of the jello and also get rid of these things that are in the view of the camera right now.